Okay, welcome to Boxing After Dark. This is going to be a weekly show that is going to cover the week's news of boxing and any weekend fights that occurred. Obviously, we had a fight last night, so I'm starting this one on Monday. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about the weekend Showtime fights that happened on Saturday, the Fury and Jake Paul fight, the super fight between Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, and I'm going to talk about Andy Ruiz being a free agent. So let's go. Okay, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well. So this is a new segment that, like I said, I'll be doing every week and just covering all the news and stuff like that and the fights. So, you know, as it goes on, it will get better and better, and I'll develop it and hopefully build up a nice little show every week for, you know, just a boxing roundup basically. So let's start with the Showtime card, okay? That was a triple header. You had on the undercard, I actually missed this fight, Elvis Rodriguez and Joseph Adorno. I really wanted to watch this. I was on my way back and I caught the last couple of rounds, but 140 pound Elvis got a majority decision, and you know, he started turning it. This isn't going to be a whole technical breakdown of fights. I'm just going to cover it lightly, lightheartedly, casually, and you know, just spare the technicalities for this video. But Elvis Rodriguez got his right hook going, beautiful hook, and he put Joseph Adorno down in the 5th round, and you know, he hurt him quite badly in that, and then he finished the fight quite strongly after reading the reports on that. Another, you know, good fighter for the 140 pound division, Elvis Rodriguez. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute because that is a crazy division. On the undercard, you also had Jamal James against Alberto Pomeda. I forgot his name momentarily, but in the beginning, you know, I know James has had a long layoff and I know he's been sick and stuff like that, but like Jamal James, and even to his own admission, you know, he looked really raggedy and he was losing his shape quite badly, and it was like quite a wild performance, you know. And I actually thought to myself, man, if he keeps fighting like this, he might get stopped, just because he was just so out of shape and so out of sync. But you know, his length and reach, and you know, he was quite tenacious, to be fair, and he was hurting Pomeda to the body and controlling him a little bit. But he can't be fighting like that if he starts facing better opposition, because I know Butte have stopped him before. So I know he's had a long layoff and he's coming off a stoppage, so it's an okay win, but he needs to tighten up his shape, and he didn't look that strong to me physically. You know, I know he's long and wiry, but he's got a few things to clean up there. But nonetheless, he gets the victory. And then in the main event, Subriel Matisse. Why is it like this guy? He's like the Terminator. He is potentially the new boogeyman. I know he's always been like a little bit feared in that division. He defeated Jermaine Ponce in the 5th round. The towel came in, and I was really surprised. I think a lot of us were when that did happen. That was a wild fight, first of all. It's a crazy fight. But I think Ponce's dad didn't really want to take the fight in the first place, from what I'm hearing. And then, you know, obviously if it's his son and the fight's going pretty brutally. I mean, Ponce came out to a wild start. He was throwing a lot of punches, but you know, I think given that context, it makes a bit more sense. But I was still, you know, I was like, wow, what's going on with all these stoppages, you know? Like, nonetheless, you know, I'm not there in the privy to the conversations, but Subriel Matisse becomes the IBF 140 pound champion. That was a vacant belt, and immediately calls out Regis Prograis. Now, what's interesting is Prograis responded, but he's said something like, yeah, great, I'll see you sometime soon, champ, or something like that. Not, okay, let's get it on for the unification. Prograis got the WBA belt, because Prograis been calling other people out, talking about how he's put Tio in hospital. He would put Tio in hospital. Matisse has said that he would put Prograis in hospital. I'd like to see Prograis go, okay, bro, let's go now. But Prograis like, yeah, well, we'll see you some down the line, bro. Sometime down the line. Not sure if he really fancies it that much. I think, listen, Prograis definitely, I admire his style. I love listening to his interviews. He's an old school throwback fighter. And that, I don't know who I would favor in that fight right now, because that is a rough fight for anybody. He reminds me of Better Biev, not stylistically, Matthias. Not stylistically, just stoically. He looks like a bad man, and he quoted something like, "Oh, you know, there are crazier people in the sport," meaning himself. If you're like, "Oh, that's a tough night's work for anybody." That is an amazing fight. That would be an amazing 140 pound unification fight if they get it on. But we'll see what Prograis' energy is like, because, you know, the ball's in his court basically. And Matthias, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Apologies, but you know, he's no joke, and he's now a champion, and he wants all the smoke. But that division is nuts. I've lost count. I've almost lost count of all the top fighters. All right, let's go through them. Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez, Jack Catterall, Matthias, Regis Prograis, Shojahan Ergashev, who he's my dark horse to do some business in this. Richardson Hitchens, I got that name wrong. I know there's a couple more. Barbosas, 1, 2. It's stacked. That division is absolutely stacked, and you know, from head to toe. I'll leave a graphic on the visual right here, so you can just see exactly what you're dealing with. Because it's going to be a fascinating, you know, division in terms of matchup and fights. It really is incredible. All right, moving on to yesterday's fight, which, you know, let's just say how amazing the production was and what a spectacle. Obviously, we know all the stars that were there. You've only got to look at the amount of numbers that the media press conferences and post-fight you know, interviews with like John Fury, Tyson. I mean, they're doing mega numbers. That was a huge event. Fight itself was a bit scrappy. I didn't particularly enjoy it that much, although credit to both of them. Tommy Fury comes out victorious in an 8-round split decision win over Jake Paul. Jake Paul took the loss well. I like seeing that. Credit to him. He'll be back. And, you know, Tommy Fury pulls off a good win. And to be honest, well, I say good win for him, because, you know, a lot of people were criticizing him, like, you know, how he was saying he felt like he won a world title and he was crying. And listen, the amount of pressure that guy has been under, not just from his family, his friends, just actually doing the fight itself, having to prepare himself. He looked well prepared. You know, he came in there very confident, and I'm happy for him, because if he'd have lost that, he'd still be in Saudi Arabia now. That's an incredible amount of pressure fighters go under. Do you know what I mean? And that was a big stage. And I think, you know, ultimately he got the win. It was a scrappy affair, like I said. They didn't really have much creativity. They kind of ran out of ideas. And, you know, Jake Paul, I just think, you know, if you back him up with the jab, he doesn't know how to fight going backwards. Obviously, he's still a novice, and he's got very obvious counter punches. They do come in quite quick and sharp, but they're very predictable if you know what you're doing. I just think if you put him on the back foot with a nice double hard jab, maybe a triple jab, Fury's combinations were actually having an effect, because after he's in there in the pocket, you know, Jake Paul's got that duck down every time he ducks to his left or right, I think it is. You know, just let your hands go. Let that 4th and 5th punches were getting through for Fury. But nonetheless, it was an interesting fight. And in fact, as Andre Ward put it pre-fight, when he was asked about it, he said, yeah, it's a fun scrap. And I think that was my thoughts going into this. It's like, yeah, it's a fun scrap, and, you know, I'll watch it, but you know, it didn't really do much for me in terms of boxing skill. But nonetheless, moving on to the super fight, okay? Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. I made a video about this, and I was, you know, saying, look, the fight isn't totally done yet, but it was initially penciled in for the 15th. It's now the 22nd. It's all go. Showtime, pay-per-view, and DAZN. I don't know who's got the actual pay-per-view. I'm still trying to find out details on that, but nonetheless, that doesn't really matter. The fight is on, and this is great for boxing. 22nd, it's at catch weight, 136 pounds. You want to see the breakdown on that? I've done a mini breakdown and a full video. I'll leave the link at the end or up here right now, and go check that out. But I'll do a bigger fight breakdown when that gets closer to the time, because it's exciting. You know, I've been very optimistic about big fights happening this year. And well, this is one. We got one down. We got about 3 to go. Hopefully the Fury Usyk one is next, and then obviously the less likely out of them is the Beterbiev and Bivol. You know, when you think about it, right, and like as an excited boxing fan, I'm like, you kind of forget who's in the way of these fights. You know, we don't forget, but like really and truly, there's a lot of baggage that comes with setting all these up. And if it's not a big money fight like that one and the Spence and Crawford one, even though I think they'll do okay, we know they're not the super mainstream fights, whereas the Tank Garcia one is, and the Fury Usyk, even though I know it's undisputed and I don't know how much that'll catch on in the US, but still a huge fight, very marketable fight. But you know, there's a lot of baggage behind the scenes that goes on but to prevent these fights. So I'm still wishful and I'm still optimistic that we're going to get 3 of these. Okay, we got 2 more to go and I'll be really happy. If we get all 4, that'd be amazing. But yeah, anyway, that's great for boxing. Last bit of story on this Boxing After Dark. Andy Ruiz becomes a free agent, according to Michael Benson's tweet. And I'm picking up on this story because I find it interesting, because I think there's a lot more fighters that appear to be a bit more cautious and waking up a little bit to the contracts, shall we say, that they get forced under or put under, or when they realize that they have a bit more power. And I like that. I think it's great. You know, I'm always pro fighter. I think these guys are superhuman beings. I've got the utmost respect for fighters, you know, and you know, it's nice to see them have a bit more control. And I think you would think it'd be good for boxing, but like the fact that Bud Crawford, well, I guess Spence is still with Heyman, the fact that Bud Crawford came out off of his contract with Top Ranking and still couldn't make these fights. You know, obviously there's two to tango, but I like it. I think it could be a positive thing. I think there's a shift happening with a lot of boxers that are starting to do their own thing a little bit, and you know, I quite like that. That's the reason why I'm picking up on this story, because hopefully, I know it might make things more complicated, maybe, but I would like to see fighters get taken care of a bit more, you know, and perhaps if they take away the power from the promoters and the power is with the fighters, that would be incredible. Because you know, I know historically fighters have always been completely shafted by promoters. Not as much these days, to be fair. You don't hear about it as much, but yeah, that's encouraging. But anyway, that's it from me. First episode done. Boxing After Dark. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to be, you know, well, energizing and trying to reanalyze this episode and try to get it as good as I possibly can to make it, like I said, a weekly thing where I'm going to cover all the fights in just a relaxed fashion and just get as much news, if there's any news that happened during the week, out to you guys, and any fights that are covered and anything that I feel might be important that I can talk about. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I've got loads of videos coming. Shout out to all the new subscribers, shout out to people that tuned in for the short videos. I've got loads of those coming as well. And that's it from me. Peace and love. Boxing on the Edge. I'm out of here.